Good morning, everybody. After the speak by Dr. Alka and Dr. Rahul, I think they have given the roadmap for the today's discussion. So what I was to cover, it is already covered. So that that has made my job easy. Okay. But when we talk about, Madam talk about Viksit Bharat. Viksit Bharat and Rahul, they talked about biodiversity. So Viksit Bharat means raising the GDP level. And raising the GDP level means increasing the prosperity of the individual. But at the same time, increasing the emissions, leading to health impacts, ecological effects, and biodiversity impacts. Again, economic loss. So now we need to balance this. And when we talk about Bharat, Viksit Bharat, we need to talk about our constitutions, the Article 48A and 51A, which talk about conserving or preserving the environment. One talks about the duty of the citizens to conserve the environment, as the other talks about the duty or responsibility of the state to give a better environment. You can add to that, the Supreme Court has, in one of its rulings, mentioned that like a fundamental right, clean environment is also a fundamental right. So now when we talk about Viksit Bharat, we not talk about economic development, we talk about environmentally sustainable development. And as a step towards that, to ease that, number of legislations have been passed, number of rules have been passed, and in the last couple of years, we have seen number of rules which have come, especially the waste management rules, which talk about EPR responsibility, recycling, reuse, recovery of the material, and talking about the circularity, circular economy. We had come out with certain, we have come out with the amendment in the Water Act. We have come out with amendment in the Air Act, doing away with the imprisonment clause, making it easy for the industries, bringing transparency in the system, how to give consent, when to refuse consent, what is the time period of giving consent, what is the validity of the consent, what is the cost of the consent fees is to be paid. Everything is very clearly defined. Where the industries can come, the citing criteria has been very clearly lined. So this brings a transparency in the system of granting consent, revoking consent, and even imposing penalty. Now, instead of the individual board imposing penalty or environmental compensation, adjudicator has been imposed, which will impose penalty. So now, third party has been there rather than the same party which was a regulator and also a judge. No, that has been done away with, and the educator will be there who will be responsible. But in addition to that, the court can also impose fine. So now when we have these acts, we now also talk about the last sector of industries as a mandatory requirement from the SEBI, ESG, and BRSR documents also. Now this also talks about carbon footprint. They also talk about greenhouse gas emissions. They talk about water use. They talk about water conservation. And now recently in the BRSR, green rating has also been added. So now we have these legislation also along with the environmental legislation also. Will it not be good to combine all this, have a synergy between all this? Why to do all this auditing every time separately? Why a single entity of knowledge, information on a single platform can be used for all this? This is a challenge the industry is facing. So I'm putting this point for discussion which can be taken up. And when we talk about the data that we generate, always it is that the industry is not compliant. Transparency is lacking. And sometimes it's true, sometimes it is not true. So what is the mechanism that we come out with a system which is foolproof and gives you clear, good data which can be relied upon? If you see the present scenario, when all the industry says that they are meeting with the emission norm, then why the more and more cities are becoming bad air quality? There is some gap somewhere. So we need to bridge that gap. So we need to come out with a mechanism or a strategy that how we bridge the gap. This gap can be bridged through a policy formulation also. And whatever policy formulation is there, it should be a science-driven policy, not sitting on the table and making a policy. This policy should have mechanism which is well tested. Yes, that these attributes will deliver. And they should have been, while after framing the policy also, they should be relooked, tested for their efficacy of the system. And in case it is found that these strategies or attributes are not viable, we need to reorient our policy, redefine the policy, and come out with a revisit the goals also. You see, we have come out, when we talk about, Dr. Sharma mentioned about Delhi's air quality. We have been working on since 1995 to improve the Delhi air quality. 1995, it's 30 years now. But we are still at the same place. Why? Either the policy is not correct, or the implementation is not correct, or there is a gap in the data which leads to the wrong policy formulation. So this is the area where we need to work, so that when we talk about 2047, Viksit Bharat, when we talk about industrialization reaching at that pace, we also talk about a clean environment, meeting the environment air quality, what we deserve as a goal. That can only happen if we are able to have well laid down policies. And that can only be done if we have a good monitoring network, both with the industry and in the environment also. But what to use for the monitoring? Shall we use the IoT-based system? Shall we use the AI, artificial intelligence? Shall we use the machine learning? Shall we use a DS system? What? They will give you what you want unless you put a good data in that, you put a good input into that, they will give you the same thing. But they also need capacity building and capability building, which is presently lacking with most of us in terms of data management. So this is another gap where we need to bridge, the data management gap. Unless that is bridged, whatever policy you come out, it will not help us. Because AI, ML, all are based on algorithm. And it is on the software developer to define any algorithm, get any result, what is possible. So we need to have good input, because input defines the output in the AI, ML, or DS system, anything you want. So we need to look into those systems. So that is a challenge for discussion today, because that will be a point in the panel discussion also being raised today. And when we have all these things, we need to achieve the target of the air quality management. The Central Pollution Control Board has come out with us norms for 110 type of industries, emission norms. It has the air quality norms also. And more norms are being made stringent. Now, these norms should be technology oriented. Not like either we want to have the norms based on the technology like EU has, European Union has, or USA has. Or we need to have a different set of criteria for following the standards. That needs to be defined very clearly. Because the scale of operation of our industry is very different. There are industries of steel plant operating at 25 million tons per annum. There are steel plants operating at 200 tons per day also. So same technology and same process may not be applicable to both. So we need to either define a scale of operation which is likely to be permitted for environmentally sustainable operations, or we need to have some sort of differentiation in the criteria so that the industry suffice, the job is given, everything is given. So this is a point which need to be discussed here. When we talk about this technology, we always talk about what is available outside. But we cannot look always outside. Those countries don't have a scale of operation as big as in India in many sectors. Even they are not able to manage the waste of a 25 million ton steel plant. If you talk to them, no, they are not able to manage. So who will do that? We have to do ourselves, our job. We have to look into the technology. We have looked into the methodology. And we have to work closely with the technology provider that what can be achieved and what not can be achieved. This is another area that any technology or any standard need to be formulated. It has to be an integrated approach where the technology providers are there, the industry is there, the regulators are there, and the senior policymakers are there. So a policy should be derived based on the technology availability, What can be done, how much time it will take, proper time frame need to be there, so that this lead to other industrial growth in the country. It does not lead to doing away the money outside. But what technology we develop, it should be self-developed, so it leads to another job opportunities as well as that. So we need to look into that. One thing which is practically missing, we have that when we formulate a policy, the interdepartmental negotiation or discussions are lacking. CPCB or the ministry frames a policy on power plants. There should be an intensive discussion with power ministry. There should be intensive discussion with the technology provider. And there should be intensive discussions with, when we talk about FGD, we need limestone, availability of limestone, mining sector also, mining ministry also. So we need to have an integrated approach. And then where to use this gypsum? We have to have another thing. So we need to have an integrated approach of discussions, anything. So this is another thing we need to discuss today, that how this needs to be formulated and how need to be done. Since most of the points have been covered by Madam, because I raised some of the points because yesterday I was in Bangkok, and all the South Asian countries are blaming India for the transboundary pollution. Every country blamed India. And we don't have any transboundary monitoring station to justify that we are not polluting. So I could counter, but I had no database to counter them. So we need to develop a good database, which is reliable, accurate, precise, and at par with the international levels through quality control, quality assurance also. But we also need to ensure that what technology we bring does not lead to another senior co-impacts. And that is happening as on date. I'm not criticizing what has been done or what is being done. When in 2000, when we switched to CNG, the NOx levels were very, very low. It was only particulate matter problem. SO2 was high, but with the diesel, SO2 has gone. But now, with the CNG, NOx has increased. With the increase of NOx, ozone has increased. Now you lead to another pollutant. So when the technology is brought, we need to look into the repercussion or the impacts which will happen. Now everybody is working on biomass burning. But now Europe is working strictly on black carbon now. If black carbon standards are imposed, what will happen to our industry which is using the biomass now? Will be able to meet that norms or not? So we should start making preparation for that, whether we will, how we tackle that problem, how we monitor that problem, because we don't have even the capacity to monitor black carbon at many of the places in the country. So we need to have a capacity building for monitoring, we need to have capacity building for the instrumentation, technology, and we need to have a capacity building to look into the impacts of that technology also. So there is a big way where we need to work together, and today we have represented from all the sectors of the industries, maybe the industrial sectors, the policymakers, the regulators, the technology providers, other scientists, experts in their field. So let's take this opportunity to come out with certain guidelines of framework which we can forward to the ministry for working in future on the strategies, guidelines, goals, targets, whatever we can say, and coming out with the framework of new legislations. Just a point to raise, now we have end-of-life vehicle, where we have fixed lifespan of the vehicle. Does a Nano costing 1 lakh and a Mercury costing 80 lakhs have the same lifespan? No, it cannot be. So it has still some utility. The Mercury still has. So when we only talk about one angle, we look from one angle, yes, it's good to discard. But when we look in totality, the energy requirement, the mining requirement for making a Mercedes or Nano is a lot more. So we need to have any system where we need to give a weightage to the applicability of those parts still for a few more years rather than having a lifespan. So this is just a point from my side. So we can have similar points in other side also where we can look into that. When we have fixed the lifespan as an EPR for electronic vehicle, 5 years, 7 years. So now no electronic vendor is giving warranty for more than 7 years now, because they know they have to take it back. Earlier it was 10 years, it was 12 years. So with the scale of operation in our country, We should do that because it requires a lot of raw material. We don't have the raw material for many things. So we need to think over it that we need to adopt the things what we have done in EU or USA, or we need to adapt to our scenario, our situation, considering that the scale of operation is very, very large in India. Now Finland, 5 million population. Delhi, 20 million population. So even a country cannot be compared with Delhi itself. So the challenges are very different. A chief engineer or an administrator runs Delhi, a government runs the Finland with 5 million people. Norway, same thing. Denmark, same thing. So they can have those policies. Can we have those policies? We need to look into that, the resource requirement, the conservation requirement. So we need to think with the scenario what we have and what we need and what we should do. Thank you very much.